They said that winter came early in Yaransk that year. Not the kind of early that makes farmers grumble and children rejoice, but the kind that smothers entire valleys in silence and turns the rivers into glass before the last leaves have fallen. By the feast of St. Michael, the first snow had already buried the road markers, and the forests, those ancient, gnarled cathedrals of pine, had begun to creak under the weight of ice. It was the year of the great famine, though in our village we did not yet know it by that name. We knew only that the grain stores were low, the hunting traps were empty, and the winds carried a bitterness we could taste on our tongues. I was 16 that winter. My father, a woodcutter, had been dead for 3 years, swallowed by the forest during a hunting trip. My mother, thin as birch bark, kept our hut warm with what little would she dared take from the dwindling pile. We lived on scraps of rye and boiled pine needles. Hunger was no stranger. It had been sitting at our table for weeks, but something else had begun to arrive, something stranger. It was the smell. At first it came on the wind from the western edge of the village, faint, like the scent of meat roasting over a faraway fire. But there were no fires, no one wasted fuel on cooking anymore. And meat was a dream we no longer spoke aloud. The smell grew stronger with each passing day. Some said it was wolves, dragging their kills too close to the village. Others whispered of a deer, frozen in the forest, its flesh thawing in the brief afternoon sun. But those who dared to follow the scent never returned with anything. No carcass, no blood in the snow, nothing, only silence. I remember one night in particular. The moon was high, pale as bone, and the frost clung to the inside of our hut's walls. I woke to the sound of voices outside, low, hurried murmurs through the slats of the window. I saw 3 figures moving through the snow. They carried something between them, wrapped in a torn blanket, and their boots left dark stains in the snow. Stains that did not glitter like melted frost, but spread, black and heavy. The next morning, the smell was stronger than ever. By the end of that week, old Stepan the beekeeper, who had not smiled since the summer his wife died, was gone. His hut stood open, its door swinging in the wind. On his table lay a single loaf of bread, mold creeping along its crust. No one saw Stepan again, but the smell became almost unbearable. Mother told me to stay inside after dusk. "They are hungry," she whispered, though she did not tell me who they were. Her eyes were hollow, darting toward the window as if the snow itself might be listening. I thought I knew hunger. I thought I knew what it meant to be desperate. But that winter, Yaransk began to teach me something else. That there are hungers which do not end with bread, nor meat, nor even the warmth of another's hand. Hungers that grow teeth. And though I did not yet understand it, the first of those hungers had already taken root inside the village. The first snowstorm of December came like a burial shroud. For 3 days, the wind screamed through Yaransk, rattling shutters and driving snow so thick you could not see the hut across from your own. We huddled inside, gnawing on dry bark strips and sipping water boiled with pine needles for flavor. By the 3rd night, the smell outside had faded, replaced by the acrid bite of smoke. When the storm passed, the village emerged like survivors from a shipwreck. Snowdrifts towered higher than the roofs, and the forest had vanished entirely from view. That was when we found the first bones. It was a boy named Pavel who discovered them. He had gone to the river, or what remained of it, to break the ice for water. But instead of fish trapped in the glass, he found a scattering of ribs and a skull, half buried in snow. The bones were clean, not gnawed by wolves, not shattered by an axe, but stripped bare in a way that made my stomach turn. The skull was not of a deer, nor an elk. It was human. Whispers spread through the village like frost across glass. Some said it was Stepan, the missing beekeeper. Others swore it was a stranger, someone who had frozen in the woods. But I remembered the black stains in the snow, the figures moving through the night, and I knew, though I could not yet admit it, that someone in Yaransk had eaten this person. By the next day, the bones were gone. No one saw who took them. That night, the smell returned stronger than before. The hunger in Yaransk began to change people. You could see it in their faces, cheeks sunken like old graves, lips cracked and pale, eyes darting with an animal quickness. Some stopped speaking altogether, moving through the snow in silence, as if sound itself might betray them. Then came the disappearance of the Morozov family. They lived at the very edge of the village, a mother, father, and 2 children. The morning after the storm, their door was wide open, snow piled inside. The table was overturned, and a single mitten lay in the corner. No footprints led away from the hut. It was as if the snow had swallowed them whole. But that night, I saw something. The moon was hidden, but the clouds glowed faintly with reflected starlight. I had gone outside to fetch a bucket of snow to melt for water. At the far end of the lane, near the old well, I saw 4 shapes crouched low. They were eating. I could not see what was in their hands, but their movements, jerking, tearing, swallowing, made my chest tighten. One of them turned. I recognized the face. It was Anton Sidorov, the blacksmith's apprentice. His mouth was wet, his chin glistening. For a moment our eyes met, and in them I saw no shame, no fear, only the calm certainty of someone who had chosen their hunger over their soul. I dropped the bucket. The sound was enough. The shapes scattered, vanishing into the snow. By morning, the Morozov hut had collapsed under the weight of the drifts, as if the snow itself wanted to hide what had happened there. No one mentioned the family again. It was as if they had never lived in Yaransk at all. Mother began to lock the door at night. She kept the axe beside her bed, and though she never said it, I knew she was no longer afraid of wolves. We were afraid of each other. It was in January that the hunger became louder than the prayers. The church, once the warmest building in Yaransk, stood cold as the grave. Father Anatoly's sermons grew shorter, his voice thinner, as if each word cost him precious life. Few came any more. Those who did only stared at the floor, lips trembling, their eyes darting toward the door, as though expecting, or dreading, something to enter. Mother and I survived on melted snow, flavored with the last handful of rye. I told myself we could hold out until the thaw. But each morning the smell returned, curling through the air like a beckoning finger. It was strongest just before dawn. That was when they hunted. One night, I awoke to the sound of footsteps outside our hut. Slow, careful, the crunch of snow. Then a gentle tapping on the wall, just below my window. I held my breath. It came again. 3 taps, then silence. I peered through the frost, rhyming the glass. Someone stood there, motionless. The hood of their coat hid their face, but in the faint starlight I saw a strip of cloth hanging from their hand, red and stiff with frozen blood. I whispered for Mother. By the time she reached the window, the figure was gone. The next day, rumors spread that Father Anatoly had vanished. His hut stood open, the bed neatly made, his prayer book still on the table. Only his boots were missing. That evening, the smell was so thick I could taste it. It led me to the old granary at the edge of the forest, half buried in snow. The door was ajar. Inside, the air was warm and damp, and there they were, at least a dozen of them, seated in a rough circle. The blacksmith Anton Pavel, the boy from the river, 2 women I'd seen fetching water just days before, all of them chewing slowly, methodically, as if savoring a feast. In the center of the circle lay something that had once been human, though I could not bear to look long enough to tell who it had been. It was a banquet in the snow, and their faces were calm, almost serene, as though this act was no longer a crime but a ritual. Then someone saw me. A hand clamped over my mouth before I could scream. Warm breath in my ear. A voice low, almost tender, whispered, "If you don't eat, you won't last the winter." I fought, kicked, broke free, and ran. The snow was deep, my legs heavy, but terror gave me wings. I did not stop until I was back inside the hut, bolt drawn, the axe in my hands. Mother asked what had happened, but I could not answer. I only stared at the door, expecting it to open at any moment. That night, I dreamt of the banquet again, but this time, I was seated among them, chewing in silence, the taste of iron filling my mouth. By morning, I could still feel the warmth of the meat between my teeth. The days blurred into a grey twilight, the sun rarely breaking through the sky. I kept the axe close at night, but each morning the handle felt lighter, as if my grip had weakened. Mother's cheeks hollowed, her voice turning to a rasp. She barely moved from her bed, and when she did, it was only to sip the thinnest of broths. The smell never left. It was in my clothes, my hair, my dreams. Sometimes I woke in the dark, certain that the granary door was swinging open in my mind. The circle of faces waited for me there, pale and patient, chewing slowly. On the 23rd night after the banquet, the knocking returned. Not 3 taps this time, just one, long, heavy thud against the door. I stood, my legs shook. The axe felt like it was carved from stone. Mother opened her eyes and whispered, "Don't answer." But she didn't sound afraid anymore. The thud came again, followed by the sound of snow shifting under boots. Then a voice, calm, familiar. "You can't last much longer." No one does. Let us help you. It was Anton, the blacksmith. I pressed my back against the door, but Mother's eyes fixed on me with an expression I had never seen before. Not fear, not despair, but longing. She whispered something I didn't catch, then rose shakily to her feet. Before I could stop her, she slid the bolt open. The door creaked wide. Snow blew in, swirling around Anton's shoulders. He looked healthier than I had ever seen, him cheeks flushed, eyes bright. Behind him, shadows shifted. Mother stepped into the night. She didn't look back. I wanted to follow, to drag her back inside, but my body betrayed me. My knees buckled, and I sank to the floor. Hunger roared in my belly like a second heartbeat. The scent that drifted in from outside wasn't just meat anymore. It was promise, warmth, survival. I don't remember standing. I don't remember walking. Only the crunch of snow beneath my feet, and the way the darkness of the forest seemed to open like a mouth ahead of me. The granary glowed with candlelight. They were waiting. The circle open, a space left for me. Anton placed a hand on my shoulder, gentle as a brother. Spring will come, he said, and I understood he was lying. Spring had no place here. When I sat, they passed me something warm, dripping, heavy. My hands trembled. My teeth found it before my mind could stop them. It was soft, rich, alive with heat. I chewed slowly. Outside, the snow kept falling, burying the path back home.